answer that for you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So what I do is I wrote this thing called Guide to Your Success, probably, gosh, 12 years ago. And the cool part about it is that I'm a realtor just like you. So my first year, 14 years ago, I did about 10 million in sales. My second year was about 14 million. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to find a different way to do business. Otherwise, I'm going to burn myself out. And so between that second and third year, I invested a lot of money into myself, into developing a very signature, complete system to sell residential real estate. And one of the things that I developed was these 7 questions that I ask. And many times I might only ask, let's say, 5 of them. But I really want to, before I take a listing, I do what I call an initial consultation. And maybe the first 10 minutes is me explaining how I work, what I do, how I'm different. The last 10 minutes is me asking them 7 questions, which basically really find out, are they motivated? Are they not motivated? Are they committed to doing it? Or are they just interested in selling? And these questions really uncover that. And then, Tamara, if I am like, gosh, I can help you out, then I tell them, hey, I can help you out. But if they want a certain price that is too high, I just say, gosh, I'm just not the right fit for you. I wish you the best. And that's it. Because what I don't want to do, and I tell them, I say, I don't want to be a traditional realtor that we get the listing and then, I don't know, a month into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we should lower the price. We should lower the price. We should lower the price, right? So I'm pretty accurate with what your house is going to sell for, just because I'm going to do a good amount of research ahead of time to find out what that is. Does that would that be helpful, Tamara?
Sure, but now part of the problem in my situation is the price. The house was priced right, but the market's changed. And so the market's come down. And they're not being realistic in changing the price now that the market's altered.
So the 7 questions I would ask, and this is something I would write these questions down, and I would go over to their house tonight and say, hey, I really need to ask you these guys questions. And after you guys give me your answers, I'll be able to tell you what you should do. If one, you should just take the home off the market and stay where you're at, or if we should get it sold, right?
Okay.
Because what we're doing is neither. You're thinking it's going to sell, but it's not, right? And so the 7 questions are this. The 7 questions are, hey, what's important about selling your house to you? In essence, what's important about moving to you? And do you mind role playing with me? Is it Tamara? Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yes.
Tamara. Okay, cool. So is it okay? I'll be the realtor and you be them?
Okay.
All right. So Tamara, hey, now what's important about moving to you and getting this place sold?
Well, we want to have more space so that we can have an office and also have an extra bedroom for guests to come stay.
Nice. Awesome. So tell me more about that. By selling this and getting something different, getting that more space, getting that office, getting that extra bedroom, tell me more about that.
Well, originally we had an office in another location that we shut down. And so we have moved the office back into our unit that we originally just set up to live in. And now that we're living there and working there, it's just too small for to do both.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. And then the third question is, what happens when you imagine, and then I'm just filling in the blanks. So Tamara, what happens when you imagine getting that place to give you more space, getting that office that you need, getting that extra bedroom? What happens when you imagine that?
Well, it feels like a much less cluttered, more open, more, an easier place to work where we're not on top of one another trying to work and live in the same location.
Awesome. So what would happen if you don't get that? Let's say you don't move, so you don't get that more space, you don't get that office space that you want, the extra bedroom. It continues to be too small, just kind of cluttered. It's not that easy to work in. What happens if you don't sell your house and you got to stay here?
Well, I think they're going to say it's not the end of the world to them.
Gotcha. So if somebody tells me that, then I pretty much say, and that if I was doing this initially, I would just say, hey, then I'm probably not a good fit for you. Because it would be like somebody walking into Starbucks saying, I want a Chicago hot dog. What would Starbucks have to say?
They can't give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, we sell really good coffee. We got some sandwiches, but we do not have a Chicago style hot dog with like a nice slice of dill pickle, that kind of special salt they put on, the sesame seed bun, scallop beef hot dog or Vienna beef, right? And so many times as realtors, we just take business because. And I would say this, there's 3 shifts that when a realtor makes these 3 shifts, their life trajectory changes immensely. And number 1 shift is this. And I had to go through this, right? So working with anyone, 2, working with only premium clients.
It doesn't matter. Either way.
Right? So a typical realtor is going to work with anyone, where what I learned when I needed to really create a business that's a business is I did the shift to only working with premium clients. A premium client to me is somebody that wants to move. Whether it's a buyer or a seller, they want to do it. Does that make sense? Just like Walt Disney World does the same thing. I just booked a family trip to Walt Disney World, right? And they told me what the price was. I was like, whoa, that's pretty expensive price. And they didn't say anything, but they could have said, well, you don't need to come if you don't want to. But if you want to, yeah, this is the price. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason a realtor doesn't want to tell somebody no is because a realtor is like, well, but then I won't get their business. And it's like, well, but if you take an overpriced listing, you're not going to get their business either. Or if you work with a buyer that wants to buy $1 million property and pay $700,000, you're never going to get their business as well. So it goes back to my 3 promises. One of my promises is, hey, I'm always going to be on time. My second promise is I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And the third promise is I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And so I say those to someone right away so that when it does come to the time where I got to be honest with them, I can say, hey, you don't remember one of my 3 promises was I was going to be brutally honest with you? Well, this is where I need to be brutally honest with you. Your house is not worth that price. It's instead worth this price. Okay, the second big shift that I did that's really, really helped me is when I went from having a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is this mindset of like, oh my gosh, these are all the clients I have right now, so I got to help them because I got nobody else to help. Where a growth mindset is like, oh my gosh, there's 3 million people in San Diego, Or when I did real estate in Minnesota, there's 2.8 million people in the Twin Cities. That's a lot of people. Just because I got a lead doesn't mean I need to work with that lead. Does that make sense? I'm going to have this initial consultation to find out if I can help them or if I can't. And then I would say the third big shift for me was when I stopped trying to do it all on my own and I went to following a proven system. And so for me, I had to like create that system. Well, once I had it created, that first year I put it into place, I did a little over 27 million of residential real estate, which is great considering the year before I was at about 14 million. I was working about 100 hours a week. And that third year I basically doubled my production, but my hours went from about 100 hours a week to about 55 hours a week. So I would say those three shifts are monumental and definitely one of the reasons that I've now been able to sell, well, gosh, as of yesterday, $376 million of residential real estate over the last 4 years. So number one, I went from working with anyone to working with premium clients, people that basically want to buy or sell. Number two, going from a fixed mindset of this is all I have to a growth mindset of, oh my gosh, there's 3 million people in my town. There's plenty. And then third, trying to do it all on my own using very traditional real estate methods to developing a complete proven system that is business-like, that it's a system just like Starbucks uses, McDonald's uses, Disneyland uses, Southwest Airlines uses, and yeah, that stuff's been life-changing. So any questions on any of that we've gone over?
What's the proven system that you're using?
Well, it's one that I created from scratch. Yeah. So basically,
do you use like a lead generation system or?
Well, I do. Well, there's 12 different ways that I go about getting leads. My gosh. So one of my coaching clients, Kay, she got 5 leads over the last week, totaling 71,000 in gross commission income. I got a lead on Sunday. Let's see, Sunday. I got 1 lead on Sunday. I'm taking them looking at some homes today, and that'll be about a $63,000 to $64,000 commission. So yeah, there's 12 different ways that I go about getting leads that is like rock solid. They range from like internet type, like Realtor, Truly, a Zillow. They range from my 12-page brochure that I create, my postcards I send out, my listing getting letters, working with a builder, working with a lender, doing open houses, focusing on my ultimate 200, which are people that know me, like me, trust me, and then really focusing on my elite 25. But yeah, that's the way to get leads. Although it's kind of like realtors want leads, but that's really not what realtors need. What realtors need is how to convert those leads. Right? That's what's really, really missing from most realtors. And not only convert the lead, but also push that person away that is just not a good lead. Does that make sense? Because in my early years, I used to work with anybody and everybody. And I was like, I'll list the house, and if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Well, I quickly learned that's a disaster. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can only help people sell that truly want to sell at market price. And vice versa, I can only help people that want to buy at market price, right? Just like Starbucks does. So I don't go to Starbucks, but let's say their coffee is $4 a cup of coffee, which is probably on the low side. You know, you either pay $4 or you don't. And I'm sure there's some people that walk in and go, $4. McDonald's sells it for 69 cents. And Starbucks goes, awesome, then go to McDonald's. Does that make sense? Like Starbucks doesn't price match. Last I checked. and they're not hurting financially. So it goes back to that fixed mindset, right? Or this growth mindset. And so what I've developed is, a complete signature system that's like, okay, I'm going to charge more money than the average realtor, and I'm probably going to get better clients, just like Starbucks does. So for instance, like in my area, many times the commission is maybe 5%. I might charge 6 or 7%. Right? If you're in an area where the average commission is 7, I would suggest to charge probably 8 or 9. And again, some realtors have a fixed mindset of like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. And it's like, well, Starbucks does it all day long. BMW does it all day long. Mercedes does it all day long. Disney World, it's $100 a ticket to go to Disney World, right? I mean, Disneyland is like 2 hours from my house. When supposedly people told me there was a housing recession, I'd go to Disneyland and I'd be like, there is no housing recession. Maybe the poor people got poorer, but the rich people are getting richer. Because Disneyland was packed. Does that make sense?
Yep.
In the recession, Ford, Chrysler, all the lame-o companies, they needed help from the government. Mercedes never asked the USA government for money because they didn't need the money. People were still buying them. Same with, the other high-end car manufacturers. Does that make sense? But again, it goes back to number one, which is working with anyone versus working with premium clients. And if people don't want to pay your premium service, that's awesome. Let them go work with one of the other 10,000 realtors in your area. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just going to be chasing. So like last year, I did 29.2 million in sales. I worked with 23 clients. And because I've been doing this for 12 years now, my work hours are getting less and less and less. So much so that sometimes I feel bad about how few hours I work in residential real estate. But it's because I've gotten really, really good at those three things. Instead of working with everyone, work with premium clients. Instead of a fixed mindset, a growth mindset. And instead of trying to do it on my own or creating a different something for each person I interact with, it's having this proven system where it's like Starbucks coffee is the same every single time. So when I do an initial consultation, I'm doing one in 3 hours from now. It is going to be the same way that I do it, that I've done it the last 12 years. Yeah, it's awesome. Any other questions on this stuff, guys?
So when you transferred from Minneapolis to San Diego, you had already developed this whole system, so you just implemented it in a different location?
Yeah. The first year I did about 20 million in sales. And I was kind of quasi-retired. I mean, I worked maybe 25, 30 hours a week.
But you had already developed your system from growing your business in Minneapolis?
I did, yeah. In fact, I sold that company probably 3 years ago. And I sold it for a good amount of money because it's system-based. The person who bought it, it's like buying a McDonald's franchise. It's like just like clockwork for him. But yeah. So my first 2 years, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a traditional realtor, hustling, right? Doing 10 million, 14 million, working 100 hours a week. I'm like, I can't keep this up. I'm not superhuman. So I told my wife, I either got to come up with a completely different way of selling residential real estate, or I got to go get a job. And I didn't want to get a job. So I'm like, I developed this completely different system. I paid about $80,000 to a few business consultants. And I went to them, I said, what would you do? You know, all the traditional realtors do it this way. And I don't want to do it that way because it's a nightmare. And they just started picking it apart like, well, I don't see any point in doing this. Why do realtors do this, 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 and this? I'm like, I don't know. They just do. And they're like, well, stop it. Right? Like, you know, people say you got to list homes. And so just take overpriced listings. And my business consultants were like, well, stop doing that. Only start working with people that have the money to sell their house and that want to sell. Like, because you can't force somebody to sell that doesn't want to sell. Just like Starbucks doesn't force people to buy a cup of coffee. Does that make sense? It's like Starbucks doesn't have a lead problem. They don't really have a conversion problem because those three things for them are really honed in. They don't sell coffee to anyone. They just sell coffee to people that want to give them, you know, $5 for a cup of coffee, of which they could go down the street to McDonald's and get it for 69 cents. And that the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So somebody could say, well, that might work in Manhattan, but that can't work in Iowa. Well, baloney. The Starbucks in Iowa is just as profitable as the one in Manhattan. Does that make sense? So this signature system that I have realtors all around America putting it into practice. You can name the state, and I probably have one, if not more, realtors in that area doing this signature system. Getting results somewhat similar to me. Just like Kay. You know, 71,000 basically in the last, I don't know, 5 to 6 days. So, and she's, yeah. So yeah, so I would say this, if you guys have any more questions on this stuff, reach out to me. I'll give you my cell phone. It's 858-212-1245. You could also go on to my website, which is profitsandpassions.com, PROFITS, and passions.com. And on there, there are basically two ways. Like if you're like, my gosh, I really, really want to dive into this. Number one, you can come to a 3-day event that I do. And I usually do those maybe every 60 days, give or take. And at the 3-day event, I go over exactly how I went from 0 to $376 million in sales. I give you my exact guide to your success, which I wrote about 12 years ago, which goes over the 12 different ways that I go about getting leads. Goes out over how to convert those leads, my listing appointment, my buyer appointment, everything. And that 3-day event comes with a $300,000 guarantee, meaning you come to the 3-day event, by the end of that 3rd day, you will walk away with a crystal clear picture of exactly how you can add $300,000 or more of income to you. If you don't have that crystal clear picture by the end of the 3rd day, you just let me know, and I refund you back 100% of that price that you paid to come to the 3-day event. That's kind of option number one. Option number two would be to just jump in and start doing coaching with me. And I do coaching for realtors for 2 reasons. One, because I like helping realtors, and 2, because I like to make money. And there's a huge void in this real estate marketplace, meaning there's so many real estate coaches and trainers out there who they're really good speakers or they're good motivators, but they've never sold real estate, right? We could all name probably 3 to 10 of them, right? And to me, I don't want to take advice from anybody who is not at a level that I want to be at. Does that make sense? So I'm a dad of 4 kids. I'm only going to take advice from somebody who's a dad and who the kids like adore the dad, right? So somebody give me a dad who they have a 14-year-old child and the 14-year-old child gives them a big hug. That's somebody I want to emulate. Does that make sense? I'm not going to take advice from a dad who the kids don't like him, or from some 19-year-old who's not a dad, right? That would be kind of silly. But that's what realtors do. Realtors take advice from all these real estate coaches who've never done it and aren't currently doing it. And that's the magic of working with myself, is that I've done it and I'm currently doing it. Like I say, I'm going on showing a buyer here in like 2.5 hours. And that'll be like a $64,000 commission, something like that.
How did you get that buyer?
They came from a Realtor.com lead. Yeah, on the internet. I think internet leads are awesome if you know how to convert them. If you don't know how to convert leads, you could have 1,000 leads a day and it'd be worthless. Does that make sense?
So what's your theory on converting them?
Well, I always go back to my 3 promises, right? Which is I want to be on time, brutally honest with them, do what I say I'm going to do. So in this case, I can tell you exactly what I said on my email. So this lead came in on a Sunday morning, and I was late for church. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to call them. I'm just going to email them. So I emailed them at 9:47 a.m. I don't know if you can see the email there. You know, 9:47 a.m. I send them this email, and this is the stuff. And the email on it says, hey, thanks for inquiring about this house on Vézelay Lane. Great home, amazing neighborhood. Number 2, you have time today around 2 p.m. to take a look. Number 3, whereabouts do you live now? Number 4, if you can meet today at 2 p.m., can I show you a few others that are really nice as well? And then number 5, any other homes that you've seen in the newspaper, driving around that you have an interest in? If so, just email me the address and I'll get those set up for us to take a look as well. So that was at 9:47 that I sent that out. And these are the homes we're going to go see today. And then he sent me back an email, probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's the email that I got back. Right? So I'm guessing when you guys get leads, you're not getting that nice of an email back. And the email back is like, I'll condense it. But it says, hey, thanks for reaching out. Just to give you some background, my wife and I have 2 boys. We live in this home we bought 10 years ago. We love it, but we're looking for something bigger. Blah, 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 blah. Like most families, our schedule's hectic. Maybe we can work out sometime this week for both of us. So I sent them this email back. And on here, it's got some really good questions on it. And then lo and behold, yesterday he said, yeah, let's take a look. I could look either, I think it said Tuesday or, I think they said Wednesday or Saturday. And I can't do that because I have a 3-day event that I'm doing this Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'm like, I can't do that, but I could do Sunday or I could do tonight. And they got back and they're like, yep, tonight. And then I'll do that initial consultation with them. I'm going to go over how I work and why I'm different. And then I'll ask them those 7 questions, right? You know, why do you want to move? Do you want to move? You know, what happens when you imagine getting that? And then I'll say that same thing of, well, what happens if you don't get that? And if you say, well, I guess we'll just stay put, like we don't need to move, then at that point in time, depending on how I feel, I may shake their hand and just be like, hey guys, I appreciate your time. I'm just not a good fit for you. And I might not even show them the house. And they might be like, what just happened? And I said, well, you guys aren't really that motivated to move, right? When I asked this question of what would happen if, I mean, you're telling me you want a pool for your kids, you want better schools, you want this and that, but then you're also telling me you don't want to pay market price to get into that house with that pool, with those schools. I mean, I'm not Superman. I'm not a traditional realtor, meaning I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. Just like if I was a physician, physicians don't get paid to tell people what they want to hear. Physicians get paid to tell people what they need to hear. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, a physician would lose their license. So like, you know, if Brian came to me and Brian has cancer and I'm a physician and I go, I don't want to tell Brian he's got cancer. I just want to make him feel good. So I'll just say, hey, Brian, you look really healthy. I'll see you 3 years from now for your next checkup. I would lose my license. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But as a realtor, we can lie to people all day long. Right? I mean, that's what a traditional realtor does. Oh, we'll price your house at $700 when we know it's worth $600. That to me, that's a lie. You know, or we work with a buyer who wants to buy $1 million property, but they only want to pay $800. Like, that would be a lie. So because one of my 3 promises is I got to be brutally honest with people, that means I can't lie. I can't even fib. I can't even taint the truth any way possible. I've got to be brutally honest with people. And when I'm brutally honest with people, I just tend to make more money and I work less. Just like Starbucks does. Starbucks is brutally honest with people. It's $4.50 for a basic cup of coffee, right? Or even take a company like Target. Target's a pretty vanilla company. I mean, when you check out at Target, that's the price you pay. It's $86.12. Have you ever seen anybody argue with Target going like $86? I don't want to pay $86. It's worth $42 to me. And what would the checkout person say? Well, I'll tell you what they'd probably say. They'd be like, well, you got $80 worth of stuff in your cart. You got to either take some out or, you know, it is what it is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it goes back to those 3 things again. And these were monumental shifts for me that I had to take to allow me to sell a whole bunch of real estate and not go crazy during the process. 1 was I had to quit working with anybody and I had to start working with premium clients. 2 is I had to get out of this fixed mindset and I had to get in this mindset of growth. Like, there's more people out there. Does that make sense? If the person today doesn't want to buy a house with me, that's okay, because there's another quality lead coming in probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then number 3, I had to quit trying to do all this on my own, and I had to follow a complete proven system, and one that would give me a ton of help, and lastly, a ton of accountability. Because I can give, I could give every single one of you guys this book, which tells you exactly what to do, but that's not going to get you to where you want to be. Does that make sense? It's like a New Year's resolution of like, you know, everybody on the New Year's Eve wants to lose weight, right? They might even have gotten the latest, greatest weight loss book. But by January 6th, how many people are not interested in losing weight anymore? A ton. And everybody kind of knows how to lose weight. This is probably one of the more basic concepts of global Earth. Like to lose weight, you got to do two things. You got to eat differently and you got to exercise differently. That's it. If you do that, you will lose weight. Does that make sense? But the people who truly lose the weight, they are hiring somebody to help them and hold them accountable. Does that make sense? So, awesome. So yeah, reach out to me. My cell phone's 858-212-1245. If you got questions on the 3-day event, awesome. Or sign up online. If you got questions about the coaching with myself, reach out to me and let me know. All right, rock stars, have a great day.
You too.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.